Hello. This video is titled What to Expect When Going Into a Shelter. Sometimes thinking about going into the shelter can be very fearful because, you don't know what to expect. You may have so many misconceptions based on what people have said that have not gone into the shelter, what public opinion is about the shelter, but I'm here to kind of alleviate those ideas and provide you with my personal account of what it's like being in a shelter, a domestic violence shelter, because I, too, am a domestic violence survivor. And in addition to being a domestic violence survivor, I've also worked in a domestic violence shelter, various domestic violence shelters. I am from the United States, so so I'm talking in reference to being from the United States, but every state varies, just like countries are different. But the common goal of a domestic violence shelter is to provide safety. But if you do think you are in a domestic violence relationship and you need some support, definitely call the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which is 1-800-799-7233. So let's get into the topic of the video. So basically, the first thing that you can expect when entering a domestic violence shelter is the fact that you are safe. You are going to be safe, okay? And I have to repeat that. You're going to be safe because statistics, and even in media, it's like you always hear about, when women leave in domestic violence relationship, they are more at risk of being harmed by their former abuser. Okay, so when you say you're going to leave, your life is kind of like more in danger. So when you leave, you definitely want to be somewhere that this person doesn't know that you're at. And my experience of being in a domestic violence shelter is the fact that no one knows that it's a domestic violence shelter. No one knows. So on the outside, it may appear as it's a regular residential building that people are paying rent in. So that's something that, it's not like, how you go to IHOP or whatever, and you see the big ass IHOP sign or whatever. Or, you know what I'm saying? Like you go to a hotel room, you go to a hotel, like, what's some hotels I could think of? I don't even know because I don't really be going into hotels like that. But I can't even think of a hotel to give you. But thinking of a hotel, you know what I'm saying? They have the signs outside of the hotel, and that it's a hotel. But with a domestic violence shelter, you're not going to know that it is a shelter. People just going to look at it and just be like, oh, okay, well, this looks like a nice building. You know what I'm saying? It looks well off. So that's something that you could think about. Like, no one is going to know where you're at. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, even the general public that's walking by it, they're not going to be like, oh, okay, well, this is a domestic violence shelter. It's not broadcast that way. So it's very secretive. It's a private location. And shelters and safe housing programs makes everything safe their first priority. So that's something that you got to understand. Like, safety, being in a location where no one knows what it is, it provides extra safety towards you. Now, you could go to a domestic violence shelter, but if you post that shit on Facebook, that ain't going to be no secret no more. Okay, that's I'm going to deter for a minute. Like, if you leave your domestic violence relationship, I would say deactivate your Facebook account or block some people who have access to your abuser that you no longer want to be involved with. Like, even the friends that you guys have in common, because people who are not in domestic violence relationship don't understand. You know what I'm saying? They could probably be like, oh, well, that person's going through something. I mean, that your abuser is going through something. Just give him another chance. Like, or, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's a safe place. And when you talk about safe places, you think about your information. Your information is confidential. Okay? Like, whatever you provide to the shelter staff, the process before you go to the shelter, because every state is kind of different. You know what I'm saying? And countries are different as well. So you want to think about that too. Like, if you don't provide your information, then you can guarantee one thing is that the shelter staff is not going to provide your information. So that's something that you got to understand and be okay with. Like, yeah, I'm in a safe space. I'm in a safe place. And I know for certain that my information is not going to be provided unless I tell people where I live at. Okay? So when I was in a domestic violence shelter, I was in many domestic violence shelters, and my experiences was good. My abuser didn't know where I was at unless I told him where I was at. You know what I'm saying? My family wouldn't have known where I was at if I didn't tell them where I was at. And then it's like, you have family members that are willing to help you. And if your family members are willing to help you, they're not going to tell your abuser where you were located. So that's something, to keep in mind. But the best thing is not to tell anyone. I would say just not tell anyone, like, just be like, I'm in a safe place. And that's it. You meet up with whoever you need to meet up outside of the place, because the fact that it's not just going to be you there are other, women and sometimes men, because men also experience domestic violence. Like, this is not just a woman thing, because we have relationships that are same sex, opposite sex, and you have transgendered men and women. So those things come into factors, and domestic violence is all about control. You always have one person in the relationship that wants to dominate the other person. So that's one thing that you could alleviate from your mind, is that you're not going to be safe. You're going to be at risk. No, you're safe, and you're going to be in a secret, safe location. And the only way that location will be given out is unless you give it out. That's what it is. Like, if you don't give out the location that you're at, then that person will not know where you are at. And we're moving along to it. And it's free. Going into the shelter is absolutely free. So when you're in the shelter and you're rebuilding your life all over again, you don't have to worry about paying no kind of rent, no nothing. You could just focus on saving your money. So that's another thing. You're focusing on saving your money so that you could build something for you and your family. Because I'm approaching this from the fact that if you are a single woman, or if you have children, you know what I'm saying? You can still go on with your daily lives. You know what I'm saying? As if nothing happened. You know what I'm saying? Like, go to your day-to-day life. It's just that the fact that you're not being abused and you don't have to deal with your abuser. So that's another thing that's great about it, is that you don't have to pay no fees or nothing like that. That's another thing, because when I was in the shelter and, I was working, I had my child with me. My child at the time was very, very, very young. I'm going to actually post my story soon, because I definitely want, everyone out there to know that, I can relate. It's important to have people that can relate to what you're going through. That's very important. You know what I'm saying? To know that there are people out there that was able to kind of get through. You know what I'm saying? I've been through all the emotions of actually being in a shelter. You know what I'm saying? Going from having your own, being self-sufficient, having a great job, multiple goals. I was in school. You know what I'm saying? Like, obtaining my 4-year degree, you know what I'm saying? Even my 2-year degrees, because people don't even talk about associate degrees no more. Everybody be like, oh, bachelor's, master's degrees. But like, even doing that, having goals outside of the shelter, you know what I'm saying? It's like, it kind of gives you a sense of being able to do other things. You know what I'm saying? Like, you have this short period of time where you don't have to pay any rent, and you could save your money and work towards something bigger than, you know what I'm saying, what it is now. So that's something that you can, look forward to. Like, you don't have to pay any fees. Save your money. You know what I'm saying? Figure at that time, you could kind of like set goals that's going to help yourself if you just an individual person. Or if you have children, you could kind of like save your money and just think about what type of life that you want your children to live. That's abuse-free. Hold on, let me drink some water. My voice is kind of feeling dry. Water is so good. It's so good. So yeah, that's something that you could kind of like alleviate. Like, you don't have to no longer pay any kind of rent. So that's a good thing. Because I know when I was in the shelter, I saved money. You know what I'm saying? I mean, $1,000. Some people think that that's really not that much money. I saved like a little over $1,000, but it was something. It gives you something to look forward to. You know what I'm saying? Like, I saved $1,000. Yeah, and when I worked in the shelter, I've always, seen women who was just motivated. Like, they had their children. Because I was in a domestic violence shelter where it was women and children. And then once in a while, you'll see a man and their children or a child. And it's like you can see how it goes from both sides of the spectrum, as far as, people want to try to control other people because they have some type of insecurities or whatever the fuck the shit is. But that video is not really about that. But I've seen so many of, domestic violence victims who, were able to still function in society, you know what I'm saying? And not everyone was on public aid or, required assistance from the government or whatever the case may be. And they was working full-time job. I had one particular young lady who was going to school full-time and also working a full-time job, and she had a 1-year-old. But she had support systems, you know what I'm saying? But the shelter that I worked in, it had childcare in it. So that's a beautiful thing about it. A lot of these shelters have childcare within it. You know what I'm saying? I've also utilized when I was in the shelter, I utilized the child care placement that they had on site. So it's like you're living there. I want to definitely go into the fact that there's different types of shelter. there are shelters where you get a, like, let's say if you have a 9-month-old or a 1-year-old, it's just you and that child, or maybe it's just you. So you'll be set up in sometimes you'll be set up in a room. You have a room, but then you probably, within that room, you'll probably have like your own little refrigerator, but you have to like kind of like share the bathroom. But then they also have other shelters where you have your own apartment. You have like your own little living room. You have your own little bedroom. You have your own kitchen. You have your own restroom within that one unit. You know what I'm saying? So that's something to like, expect. But you got to understand, even if you are just in a room and you have your little refrigerator in there and you have like whatever your little essentials, your bed, the crib, if you have a child, whatever, like they help you with that and you just have to share the bathroom. But you got to understand that this is temporary. You got to understand like this is not a lifetime change. Like this is not going to be long term. Like, okay, this is, you go to the shelter, you're going to be there for 10 years. No. You know what I'm saying? You're there temporarily. And also another thing is that they help you with getting housing. You know what I'm saying? Permanent housing where, you're paying rent and you're doing your own thing. You feel what I'm saying? Doing what you need to do. And they help you to become self-sufficient. That's another thing. They have like counselors, housing specialists, case managers. Then they, have like the director of the program. Then they also offer different little workshops. I remember, the shelter I was in, they provided like a little workshop, telling you how to be on your own and just different things. And it doesn't even have to be surrounded, in reference to just domestic violence. It could just be like, okay, today we have somebody coming over, like a group of people coming over to just give you guys makeovers. Or we got movie tickets this week. You guys could take your children, or if you single, you go to the movies. Or, they do like little things like for like the holidays, for Christmas, they give out gifts to you individually, or if you have children. It's very like a community. You know what I'm saying? And my experience is that the shelters that I've been in, it's like it functioned as a community. Even as staff, it felt like family. Like, you know what I'm saying? I remember those nights when, I used to wake up out of having like nightmares and stuff and just feeling anxiety. You know what I'm saying? And trying to alleviate that feeling of going back. You know what I'm saying? Like just feeling like, oh, well, maybe I'm making a wrong decision. And it's just surrounded around my belief system. Because, if you listen to my podcast, I in spurts and little by little, because I haven't really shared my whole story of what I've gone through. What I've gone through was very traumatic. And to look at my life and just be like, damn, I'm where I want to be. You know what I'm saying? Doing the things that I love to do. I have a amazing family. It's a great support system. I'm thriving. I'm in a career doing what I absolutely love to do. And just to think that, where I've come from. But when I was in a shelter, it was more like a community thing. I used to wake up and I used to go down and speak to the staff, even the security guard. You feel what I'm saying? Like you go there, speak to the security guard, talk about different things. I understand, there's ethics and, employees are not supposed to cross certain boundaries, but no employee ever crossed any boundaries, anything like that. Just to be able to feel like you could go to anyone on the staff and talk to them. Whether it's a security guard, whether it's your case manager, the housing specialist, there are people there to support you 24 hours a day. And that's important to know. You know what I'm saying? Also, while being in a domestic violence shelter, your case manager could refer you to outside services because maybe you need therapy. Now, I'm not a licensed professional. I'm speaking in reference to my personal experiences, and I've educated myself on domestic violence and how it impacts people and everything like that. I do have my bachelor's in sociology. I've taken some social work courses. You know what I'm saying? But it's nothing like going to a professional. So I always advise people, like, even when you are in a shelter and you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't always want to talk to people as if you're in a therapy session. So you want to definitely get those services. You know what I'm saying? Because the fact that you're in a safe place, you don't have to worry about paying rent, and you have people that support you 24 hours a day. That's great. But sometimes you need that a little bit more. Like, maybe you go to a therapist and you talk about like the deep-rooted stuff that you're not willing to talk to with anybody else. So that's something that's important to also think about. And you'll be able to talk about those things, vent. You know what I'm saying? If you have insurance, if you don't have insurance because you work in a job or whatever, you could get like, free health insurance. They do provide that, and then you could kind of like seek those services. Because sometimes when you talk to other people, you don't want to be talking about your old problems so much. You know what I'm saying? You want to be able to function as a normal citizen. And I'm not saying that, it's not normal when you're in a domestic violence relationship. Like, not relationship, but like when you're a domestic violence victim and have experienced abuse. I'm not saying that makes you a normal, but everybody that you meet, they don't need to know that you're a domestic violence survivor. You can just have conversations normal. If somebody asks you, not ask you, be like, compliment you, like, your hair look nice. You can go like, such and such beat me 10 years ago. Like, no, you have to really heal. So that's another thing. Also, a lot of these places do offer free transportation. You get like, some money to travel on the bus, the train, like wherever you need to go, whether it's whether you need extra money to go to appointments, medical appointments, or if you need money to go to a job. Because I know when I left, my domestic violence situation, I was broke as a motherfucker. I was broke. You know what I'm saying? I was so freaking broke. This dude took all my fucking money. And please excuse my language, because I know when people hear the curse word, they like kind of like shut down. But that's just how I'm feeling right now. You know what I'm saying? And it's like, I was that type of woman person back then, because I'm a different woman now. But I've been through that cycle of abuse. You know what I'm saying? I've been through many domestic violence shelters, and this is the information that I wish I would have known back then. Because I think that's another reason why I wanted to do a YouTube video and do podcasts, because you make these steps to leave, but then there's a whole nother other battle. You know what I'm saying? Because you do have memories of how this person was good to you and how it was good. And sometimes that could be so deceptive and make you think that, this person is going to return back to that person that when we first met. And the reality is, it's like, no. No, that person is never, ever going to be that person. You know what I'm saying? So that's another thing to think about. You know what I'm saying? But I digress a bit. But yeah, so like any appointments, anything you need to do, they got case managers that's willing to give you transportation so you could go on with your daily life. And even if you decide to leave everything, like leave your job, leave everything that you know to be true just to escape and be free, because that's ultimately what it's about. You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't make sense to live in a society where you have like free rights and you do all this stuff, and then you're going to allow someone to suppress that. That's not really living. You know what I'm saying? That's really not living. So even if you lose everything, you could rebuild it. That's a beautiful thing about this life, is that you could go from having money to losing money to rebuilding it and making money again and be even powerful. You know what I'm saying? So you don't have to feel so low, like, damn, when I met this dude, I was working, I was going to school, I was doing so much positive things within my community, whatever it is. You know what I'm saying? We take pride in the stuff that our personal accomplishments. So to think that, you go into a relationship and you start to lose little things. Like, those are some things to worry about. Not worry about, to look at, to examine, to kind of be like, oh, well, before I got into this relationship, I was very sociable. Like, I was a people magnet. Like, I met people from different diverse, like, different backgrounds, different socioeconomic statuses, like, different things like that. You know what I'm saying? And then you meet this person, you become like an introvert. Like, you was this vibrant, you know what I'm saying? Like, you got to just think about those different dynamics. And it's like, okay, sometimes that could kind of cause you to be sad or down and just like question life as it is. But I want to say that you could rebuild those things. You know what I'm saying? You could rebuild. You could start over. You could become even powerful. Do more things. I really believe that everyone has a calling on their life. You know what I'm saying? Like, however small it is or however big it is. You know what I'm saying? Like, going through a situation, like, when you go through a traumatic situation, that could change your personality, could change how you function, but being in a domestic violence shelter, you have staff that's willing, that are there to help you and to assist you. If you're not working, hey, let's say if you're not working, let's say you gave up your job and you moved to somewhere so far away that this person will never ever know where you live at. You feel what I'm saying? But they help you with gaining employment. And they give you Metro cards to go out to these job interviews. Also, if you are the type of person that if you want to be a business owner, they could probably put you into like workshops, different things. I knew when I used to work in the shelter, domestic violence shelter, I knew a girl who made hats. You know what I'm saying? They referred her to, it's this thing where they help like small business owners. You know what I'm saying? Like little workshops like that. And even some of the women within the shelter was buying her little hats. You know what I'm saying? So it's like even with that woman, had her little hobby, and she was able to make like money off of it and be able to like thrive. So that's something else. And I did talk about for the women who are leaving situations with children. I know that's like the double whammy, because I've been through it, like being in a shelter and just losing everything and just starting over, and you have a child, that little person that's dependent on you. But within the shelter, they offer services. They offer childcare. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes they have like mother and child day, where it's like they have activities set up so that you could particularly bond with your children. I was fortunate that, my son never witnessed, the violent abuse. But, some of you guys are not, some of you guys children have experienced that, and the best thing is to, have your children go through like therapy, do type of counseling, and also spend time to kind of like set up some type of structure, or set up something where your child is healing as well. You know what I'm saying? And the shelter system, they have some set up like that. Some of it set up like that. I remember, like, during holidays, they give gifts. Like during Easter, they used to have like their little Easter egg hunt. They used to have like clowns come to the facility and like do like little stuff for the kids. Then also like the staff like was a freaking amazing. Like it's great when you have people that's working, and whatever they going through in their personal life, they put that shit to the side and they work for the common goal. And I just had like so many positive experiences, so many that I could kind of like think about. And I truly and honestly believe that if I was able to have positive experiences, you as well are able to do that as well. Because it's like at the end of the day, it's not really about you. If you have children, you have to think about their being. They are growing up. And sometimes it's, sometimes people will be like, oh, they're a child, they don't remember stuff. Pfft, girl, or man, or whatever, like, that's my expression. Like, listen, the stories that I be hearing from kids will tell everything. They see everything. They are aware of everything. You know what I'm saying? But also as a kid, I feel like with kids, they could rebound. Like they go through some traumatic situations and they're able to go, get past it and live a amazing life when they become an adult. You know what I'm saying? Like kids are beautiful. And sometimes I think kids are so much smarter than adults because it comes from a pure place. But they do have stuff on the site that's kid friendly, so you could think about that. Kids are safe. They have like child care. Children to watch. Your children will be under your watch, but also they have child care. You know what I'm saying? Like, let's say if you are going out to look for a job, or if you're working, you know what I'm saying? A lot of domestic violence shelters, they have child care on site. The shelters some of the shelters that I worked at didn't have child care on site. They will refer you to other child care. Now, I'm talking in reference to like me being from the United States. So if you're from a different country, it's different regulations and stuff. But genuinely, you know what I'm saying? Like, even if you have a private sector, they offer some of these services. And I'm going to put out there, like, you could contact the National Domestic Violence Hotline to find out about, the different resources that they have within your country, even within the United States, because it's like each state is different from state to state. So you can kind of contact 1-800-799-7233. And I'm going to say it again. 1-800-799-7233. 1-800-799-7233. So that's something that you could kind of further explore. But we have come to the end of this video. You could definitely check out Beautiful After Abuse podcast. That's on Beautiful Start podcast. Let me say that again. So you could definitely go to Beautiful Start Podcast, and the series is called Beautiful After Abuse. And I'm going to do a part 2 to this to kind of like further talk about the domestic violence shelter if you are interested in knowing about those safety precautions, because I have to go. But definitely utilize that number. I'm going to say it again. It's free. It's 24 hours, 24/7, and it's confidential. The National Domestic Violence Hotline, 1-800-799-7233. Thank you, and please click the link that will be in the description box. It will take you to Beautiful Start Podcast, and you will definitely see the Beautiful After Abuse series. And I will have it up there as, further discussing what it's like to be in a shelter. So I thank you so much for listening to this. Enjoy your day wherever you at, and know that change is good. Okay? Change can make the difference in your life.